Ribbit, ribbit, ribbit. Hey, welcome to Creative Block. We're your hosts, Gene.
And V, we interview people in the animation industry about their life, work, and hobbies while we doodle jam.
We asked people on Twitter if they had specific topics they wanted us to discuss, as well as some drawing prompts.
And today with us, we have Forosha.
Yay!
Welcome.
Hello.
Whoa! She became God.
That was amazing. Was that on purpose?
Yes.
That's amazing. Forosha, Who are you? What do you do?
Oh my gosh. That's a loaded question. I
know.
gotta get out of here.
Apparently you're God, so...
This interview is over. No, I'm a storyboard artist. I have worked on the Ben 10 reboot from 2016, and now I am on Amphibia, which is the best.
Yeah, you like frogs.
Oh.
Would you say that? Would you say that you like frogs?
Oh, I don't know about that.
Because like 80% of the prompts we got were about frogs.
That's because there's good people. They know. They
That's
know
true.
what's up.
People know you. People know you're all about the frogs. I gave you a custom frog intro.
I know. I heard.
Yeah.
I was so excited.
Yeah. Gotta set the scene.
Mm.
Well, thanks for coming on the show.
Oh, well, thank you for having me,
Yeah, of course. Tell us about baby Forosha and kind of your early start drawing and getting into art.
Okay, well, hang on. Let me search my inner self.
Yeah. Look deep. Wow.
Okay, so my younger self says I've wanted to do animation since I was a wee bab. So, typical answer, been drawing since I could hold a crayon or pen.
Mm-hmm.
But none of that really matters. It's just, I just love cartoons, and I wanted to do cartoons since I was a wee bab, and oh man, one of my first experiences, I guess, with industry stuff was the Powerpuff Girls. I don't know if anyone remembers, but they had this contest for what was it? It was the movie. And they were if you do this, you could have your picture in the movie. And I was like, oh, I gotta do this.
Oh, I kind of remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I did that and didn't get in, and I was very upset.
Right.
But after seeing the movie, it makes sense. Because they kind of wanted more of a super kid style. And yeah,
I wish that I had seen that movie in theaters, but I was driven by the patriarchy. I was ashamed to go see the Powerpuff Girls movie as a little boy, and I regret it every day to this day. Should have just gone and see it.
Yeah,
it's very good.
Did you grow up watching a lot of TV, or was it just yeah? What was your favorite channel to watch?
It's hard to say because I would flip-flop between Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon a lot. Because I was like, oh, if I want more of the crazy stuff, I watch Nickelodeon. Because back in the olden days, it was more of, I'd say Hanna-Barbera-esque stuff.
Yeah, it kind of started as that.
With Cartoon Network. Because they were still kind of, I guess, figuring out what they wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Nickelodeon kind of had the run on them for really interesting shows. But then, they started coming out with Powerpuff Girls and Dexter's Lab. And so I kind of, and especially, Courage the Cowardly Dog and Billy and Mandy. Those are, big inspirations for me. But then Nickelodeon was like, hey, what do you think of this? And they showed me this square, and I was like, oh, I love that. And they put it in the ocean. I was like, oh, I gotta see more of that.
You gotta see that square.
Yeah, so I was obsessed with SpongeBob, like most people in my generation. And I saw the SpongeBob SquarePants movie. I lost track Okay, yeah, it was 143 times, and that's including watching it in Spanish and French.
Are you serious? Hold on a second.
Yes.
Hold on a second. Was that an exaggeration?
No, that is not. And
my God.
That's why my favorite Spanish word is cacahuate, which is peanut. But they used it for goober, because that is what a goober is.
Interesting. Okay. 143 times?
Yes.
Wow.
And it was really weird. The soundtrack came out before the movie did.
Oh yeah, huh?
I mean, that happens, yeah.
Yeah, so I knew all of the songs before the movie had even happened. So it was really weird hearing the part with the slapping because it's the Now That We're Men song. There's a part where they literally are just ham boning the whole time.
Yeah.
They're just slapping themselves, and they had that song in there, and I'm just like, I don't know what this is, but I love it. So
yeah, out of context, it's just ham sounds.
I wanted to ask you, where did you grow up? Kind of like, what was your like environment growing up? Like city, small town, or give us the deets?
It's like a mix. I grew up in Illinois, and had a fun time there, but then fun parent divorce time, so yeah, then we moved to Michigan, and slowly I became small town. It was like we were regressing and ending up in a small town versus like how I started, which is like closer to metropolitan type deal.
Yeah, I always forget that you're also from Illinois.
I like to ask the question, first of all, because it's like, I think there's something that's really interesting to show kind of like the journey from like, because Illinois is, would you guys consider that East Coast?
That's Midwest.
It's Midwest. Yeah.
And also like the size of the town, I feel is like that kind of influences the exposure you get to art and cartoons and like the discourse and animation, right?
I mean, not really, as long as you have access to TV. I think regardless of where you grow up, if it's big or small, you're going to gravitate towards it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that's kind of that's kind of an interesting thing about like our generation, is that we all kind of grew up with TV, and so like even though we all grew up in different areas, I feel like there's kind of this like common bond of like TV, like cartoons and media and stuff that we all share. Like you mentioned SpongeBob, and it's like, man, what late 20 something or 30 something doesn't have some SpongeBob quote that they constantly regurgitate, It's just like part of our shared identity. It's weird.
I was just gonna ask, kind of like in middle school / high school, like did you take any drawing classes, or how was kind of like your relationship to drawing kind of during that time?
I'd say it was just like, it was a nice escape, I'd say. Because I didn't really care for any of the subjects. I was horrible with math. I was moving a lot, not as much as my mom, but it was definitely not a great time for making friends. Like, we didn't stay put in the area until I was like in the 3rd grade, I think.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, okay, I can, I guess, make friends now. And even then, it was like maybe like 3 friends.
Yeah, that's really hard. Like the constant shifting around, that can definitely leave an imprint.
Yeah. So like the only way that I feel I could relate to anyone was by drawing, because like middle school, I used to get paid to draw like people's favorite cartoons or something for cards or whatever.
Yeah.
And I made.
You were the art friend.
Yeah, well, not the art friend, more like the art dealer.
Okay, right. You're the art hustler, yeah.
Yeah, because then I could get all the sick pizza I wanted,
You're the art pimp.
But yeah, and then I didn't know about like how I could just do animation until it was in my middle school. They had a quote unquote animation class, and we animated in PowerPoint.
Oh, hey, we talked about that in a
That's
previous
so
episode.
funny.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think we
Yeah.
talked about that with Kofi. That's so interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like especially like when you're in Michigan, the school system is not that great. So of course they're not gonna fork out the money for actual animation
No,
programs.
of course not.
So
Yeah.
like ours was like a competition basically to incentivize students to actually do the work. And I'm like, if you don't want to do the work, why are you here?
Mm-hmm.
But you know, I won. I got a Best Buy gift card. I'm like, oh wow,
Yeah.
animation man. And I got a floppy disk or whatever. Was it a floppy disk? Yeah, it's
Probably.
a floppy.
Yeah.
So it's a floppy of my animation, so I can't even look at it. But
Yeah.
knowing that it's on there, I'm like, oh, sick.
That archaic technology.
Yeah, because even then we were supposed to be using like CDs and stuff, but our school was not that great, so we didn't have great technology. So
Sure.
we had everything that was super old.
This is kind of off topic, but I wonder if like schools now are still like 5 years behind. You know, like when we went to school, I feel like all the technology was slightly behind. And so I wonder if it's still like that, or if schools have been forced to like be a little bit faster with that
Hey,
stuff.
I heard some schools have iPads for kids.
Oh
so
my God.
I know. I heard it. I don't know how true it is.
Yeah. Maybe richer
not-
schools, fancy schools.
I just with the way things are, it most likely is not the case. It like
Yeah.
it has to be a pretty rich school.
I think so.
Right.
But so what was your journey from high school onward?
High school, I knew I really loved animation, but I knew having the amount of siblings I had, there was no way that my parents were going to help me afford college. So they were like, hey, you know what would be really cool? Because my parents were like, it's probably great to draw as a hobby, but you can't make money off of drawing SpongeBob.
Yeah.
I'm like, what do you think the people who draw SpongeBob do? Do you think they
Mhm.
just get it for free?
Mhm.
But I understood where they were coming from. Yeah, so I went into the military, and I was in for 6+ years.
Mm.
And throughout that time, I was just kind of, you know, I got like depressed for like 2 years, and I didn't draw at all.
Oh no. Yeah.
But then eventually I kind of got out of it, and I started talking to people online, like other artists. And then Dave, who goes by Scrotum Nose on
Mhm.
Twitter,
What a
he
name.
started doing like these Google Hangouts. And so a lot of the industry friends I have now, even to this day, I met through his Google Hangout tweet. Like I met Nicole Rodriguez, aka
Yeah.
Schnickles, who's been on here. Like I met
Yeah.
a lot of my friends who I know now through there.
That's
Do
great.
you remember what year, kind of like how, in terms of like timing, when did that happen in relationship to like you entering the military, and how, and in relationship to like after when you really went full force into drawing?
I was still in the military at this point. I think I was at the Air Force Academy. So it's like probably like 2014, I think. 2014, maybe 2013. Yeah.
And how often were you guys like, kind of, what was the community like? Were you guys like DMing every day, or like had little contests, or?
I mean, we would just kind of just draw, just to draw.
Mm.
Mhm.
And just talk, because especially when you're not in the industry, you're just kind of hanging out. Sometimes you need that community of artists to remind you what you like about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I really remember that. Yeah. I feel like this is such a huge part of just having the energy and the motivation to keep pursuing it, because art is such a like lonely hobby or
Mhm.
endeavor that it's kind of easy to give up in the way that it's such a lonely thing to do. Kind of.
Mhm.
I don't know if that makes sense.
No,
Yeah.
it does. Yeah.
Especially if you grow up in an area where no one really takes cartoons as to heart, I guess, as you do. Cuz
I mean, that's most areas. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
but especially like in small towns, it's like people don't even think you can get into animation, you know.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It feels so far away and so difficult that it's like,
Mhm.
why bother?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely a thing that comes up a lot.
In the little community that you joined on Google Meet, were some of you guys in the industry and some others trying to break in, or were all of you
Nope.
guys trying to break in?
Literally all of us were not in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
We were all just kind of like, I mean, we were all trying to get into the industry, but that chat was not about breaking in. It was just about drawing with friends.
Yeah,
That's
but that's great.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, you form that community and then you lift each other up. And
Mm-hmm.
I know at least, two of those people, Dave and Nicole, are working artists now.
And then Deshaun.
Oh, Deshaun, of course, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Marie Lum was in there.
Oh
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, there's literally almost everyone who is in that group is now in the industry. But that's the thing. It's not about, oh, I went to CalArts and now it's a given that I'm gonna get in,
Right.
Yeah.
All of us just love cartoons and that's what it was about. So like I think like that's one of the most important things. If you really want to be in the industry, you kind of learn how to it's like almost like a mini test of your ability to work well with others.
I think that's a good way to put it. I think that like people with equal amounts of passion tend to gravitate towards each other too.
Mm-hmm.
And I had that experience in college, and it sounds like this was kind of similar thing for you coming out of the Air Force, because it was like you wanted that. Sounds like you wanted like a place to kind of be with your like peers and people who like the same kind of things as you, and it just so happens that the people who are most excited about animation all end up working in animation. It's like, of course everyone's going to end up with those jobs because they really want it. They like are driven to do it.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you, how did you practice drawing? Kind of, how was your way to practice drawing, and kind of what were you drawing at the time?
I was just kind of all about, I guess, Legend of Zelda,
Mm-hmm.
and I was just, especially Wind Waker, like,
Oh, fuck yeah.
yeah, that was my big one. That was my big happy. So, like, of course, you gotta make the OCs in there, but just drawing things that I liked, and that's pretty much it. Basically, like how everyone kind of starts out, just enjoying things and then drawing them.
I guess I was wondering, like in terms of, because we have like a really interesting episode, I think, with Kofi, where he explains kind of like he's very academical with the way like he taught himself drawing, and I was wondering if you were kind of more in the idea of like in that like classical / academic way of like doing life drawing and then like observation sketches and gesture and all that, or if you're more just kind of like driven to do fan art or like just comics or like fun stuff. Kind of what's your jam?
Well, that's why Kofi is an amazing artist.
Yeah, no kidding.
Because he's smart and looks on actually how to do things versus me. I just do them and then find out how I did them wrong later. Like,
hey man, me too.
Yeah.
But I mean, it still worked. That's the thing that I want to highlight too, is that there's so many different paths to learn. and to create and to like become a professional artist. And that's why I'm like asking you the question of like, how did you kind of pursue that practice on your own? Because you're basically self-taught, right?
Yeah.
Which I think is really cool and interesting and inspiring for a lot of people out there. So would you say, do you kind of remember how much you would draw at the time?
Gosh, like any chance I would get, I would draw, because I spent so long doing things I didn't want to do that like as soon as I could draw, I would do it. So like even in the military, because I worked the front desk of a clinic, so I would just be drawing all over sticky notes, and it was great hearing every single day, wow, why are you in the military? And being like, you should probably be, I don't know, like making money off of this or something. I'm like, haha, right?
Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah.
Do you feel like people telling you this was kind of helping in some sort of way, like some kind of encouragement, or do you feel like it was just kind of like twisting the knife in the wound?
Twisting the knife, because I always knew what I wanted to do since I was a wee bab.
Yeah.
Like they're like my parents basically delayed the inevitable. Like I was just like biding my time. And the main reason I went into the military is my recruiter lied and said that there was a graphic design job, which technically there used to be. But by the time I got in, because he was like, hey, the job's not open right now, but if you sign up, open general, which means you don't pick your job. It's not guaranteed what you have. You have to pick it after you finish boot camp. Yeah. So as soon as I got to go in and I was assuming that I would get to pick, I noticed it was not anywhere at all. So
oh god,
I went up to the person who was kind of supervising us and I went, sir, trainee Forosha reports, what happened to the graphic design job? And they're like, and then they kind of laughed and they were like, oh man, your recruiter got you good. That job like was forced out.
Haha, pranked you.
And basically it's all contract civilians now.
God damn it.
So I just stared at my job list based off of my test results, and I was like, what do I do? And the person's like, here, I'll help you out. Pick anything that says health or admin or anything like weather or anything in the medical field especially can guarantee that you're going to be in an air-conditioned building. So I suggest going that route. So
that's good.
They did at least help me out a little bit, but it's still pretty scummy. So
dude, that sucks. That's just
but it happens a lot, and so that's why I tell my story, because maybe it's not how everything goes for everyone. Like sometimes you might have a recruiter who like straight up tells you what's up, but mine did not.
I mean, I feel like more often than not, from what I've heard in the past, there's always some manipulation that takes place, and it's like that's not cool. For like, he's like, how old were you when you signed up?
I was 17, so I had to have my parents sign a waiver because I could legally not say, hey, I want to join the military.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That's entirely my opinion, but that's fucked up, man. That's like,
that is messed up.
It's like you're so vulnerable at that time and you're like unsure of your future, and for them to like tell you what you want to hear just to get you in, man, I don't know, whatever. That's my hill. And I'll die on it.
That's a good hill.
Yeah.
How did you kind of decide to actively try to go after an industry job? What was this thought process too? Because for the longest time you were like, well, not really gonna do it, right? Because you.
Oh no, I knew I was going to do it.
Oh, okay.
The only reason I agreed to the military is because I knew they would pay for my college. After serving, like, you have to have at least 3 years of serving in the military. So I was like, all right, just do your best not to get kicked out until 3 years, and then you can get out of there. But
Okay.
also my
Nice.
goal was to get as close to the West Coast on the military's dime as possible. So I would keep applying for, because I was in the Midwest and my parents weren't going to help me get to California.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, well, that's what the military's for. So
Mhm.
yeah, I was just like, all right, I'll help the military out if they can help me get to California.
Do you feel like that paid off?
Yes,
Okay.
because it at least helped me save up enough money to get to California. And plus, because of my whatchamacallit, it's the post 9/11 GI Bill. It
Mm.
basically means if I'm a full-time student, they will pay my rent. So I
Wow.
knew, basically, when I moved to California, it would be a little easier to convince people to give me a place to live, even if I didn't have a job.
I see.
Mhm. That's yeah. I mean, that's appealing.
Really smart.
Yeah, and I mean, the problem was in order to find places to live in LA, you kind of have to be there.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't have a place to live. So I was planning on sleeping out of my car in the parking lot of the college.
Oh man, Forosha.
But luckily within the last week, Sandra and I moved in together with Andre because he was moving out of his apartment.
Yeah.
So we got to take his really bad apartment.
This is Sandra Rivas, right, and Andre Lemilza.
Yeah.
Just for context.
Mm-hmm.
And that's crazy. I got like your dedication is definitely applause worthy. Just like, I'm gonna do this shit and I don't give a fuck how it's gonna, like that's awesome.
Yeah.
I was like, it was because I had been so miserable in the military that like, especially like it was a bad time, like being depressed for 2 whole years and not doing the thing that you like to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like it messes you up. So
Yep, sure does. You're just kind of trapped in that, and like, but I mean, yeah, it sounds like it was awful, but it paid off in some way. That like, everyone I guess has to pay their dues somehow, some way.
Mm-hmm.
And thankfully, you did end up working. I mean, sounds like you love your job now. Sounds like it's
Yes.
the best job ever in the world for you.
Well, I mean, how else could you describe getting your favorite animal that you get to draw all the time, and the crew is super nice, and they let you like they're so I love working on Amphibia. I'm gonna toot that horn till the cows come home,
Toot that horn.
Cause wow, like
yeah,
I'm like, people can be biased about like a show just for the content alone, but like it was such a like it's I I talk like it's a past tense, but just because like I think it's just because I'm not in the same place with them anymore, so it feels like past tense. But it's such a healthy work environment. Like, I would ask to like be in on the animatics and see kind of how they rip apart my boards and stuff and what they do to cut it down. And I even got to have some input and stuff, and it's like, that's so cool. And I got to record scratch, and it's like, not a lot of places let you kind of do that.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of, I don't know. It felt like almost like training for stuff I'm going to do in the future.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, that's great.
Mhm.
And
We'll get to
I was
that
actually
later.
wondering, before we jump into too much amphibia, what was your first gig? How did you land your first gig?
Oh, okay. So military, I just got out. So I'm living with Sandra, and she at the time was working with a little animation studio called Studio Yada.
Oh,
And yeah, and it was great. But you know, when you're an animator, you love doing the animating, but cleanup is literally the worst ever. So what we did was she would, because I wanted to learn animation really bad. So I was like, but I didn't know how. So I was like, hey, Sandra, what if I helped you with cleanup? And she was like, yes. So she would give me like a bit of her pay from helping with cleanup. So I kind of got to build up my resume through Studio Yada because they did stuff for OKKO, like stuff with Double Fine, like
I mean, they did my short
all over the place, you know. Yeah, but I didn't get to be a part of that because at the time I was testing for Ben 10.
Yeah.
So it was like, ugh.
It's because I forbid them from hiring you. I said I do not want Forosha on my project.
It's true. I was very hurt.
She's just gonna make everything frogs, and that's not what I want.
You know what? You're not wrong.
Yeah. Everyone is frogs.
It becomes Planet Frog.
It becomes Planet Frog. Now there's a pitch. We can talk about that after the episode.
Listen, that's just Amphibia. Come on.
You're right. That is literally Amphibia. And then what happened from there, from Yada?
So then I got the test for Ben 10 through Andre, who was like, hey, I'm working on this show and a spot opened up. You should test for it. I was like, sick, all right. And he was like, hey, put a portfolio together. And I'm like, oh, shoot. And then also I forgot to say, through Sandra, I got some work, some storyboard work with Nico. I can never say his last name. I'm so bad with last names.
Colaleo?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I got to help work on his Too Loud shorts. So I got a little bit of experience there.
What did you do on the Too Loud short, by the way? Boards or animation? Or
boards.
Awesome.
And I got to do a little bit of cleanup animation just to help out.
Nice.
So you kind of jumped around all these little animation projects before you got into that studio gig.
And also at the time I was also Air Force Reserves because I still had 2 years left on my contract. So I moved to LA 2015 and I had to finish. I didn't get my studio job until 2017. So all those other times I was in the Air Force during one weekend a month. And then also I was a full-time student. So I had like 6 classes, and then I was also doing Studio Yada work. So I was doing all that at once.
Jeez, that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's inspiration.
Yeah.
I love it.
That's the grind.
Yep.
Unfortunately.
And so you were after you did all these like little freelance gigs, you said the first gig that you landed was the Ben 10 gig?
Yes.
And how long did you do that one for? And kind of what were some highlights from it?
So I was there for 2 years, I believe. And highlights from it was a board-driven comedy action show. So it's a lot to throw at a new board artist because I was not revisions. I didn't start out revisions. I was straight up a board artist. So
That's huge.
Yeah, I had... It's why I constantly feel for revisionists, and I'm just like, thank you so much for helping make my boards make sense. Like, revisionists are the true heroes. And they deserve just as much recognition as board artists, because sometimes they're just completely reboarding a whole scene.
Yeah,
you know?
For sure.
But yeah, so my experience with that was hitting the ground running. So now I know how to use Storyboard Pro, so that's a big takeaway.
That helps.
Yeah, and kind of just learning how to pitch too, because I had never pitched before. And you have to pitched to like Man of Action, who was like kind of the spearhead creators of Ben 10, and sometimes there'd be an exec there bringing their kid or something. But
okay, interesting.
yeah, but you know, it helped with learning how to properly pitch and sell the story that you were making, especially with how rough my boards were. Because looking back, I don't know how we got any animation back legibly.
I want to take like a moment just to say that like I love that you guys were able to send boards that are rough and still get good animation back, because my personal soapbox is boards are too clean nowadays.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if like honestly, if you do a lot of redos, but the boards are not expected to be super clean, I think that's like I think it's less of a problem, because it's like, yeah, I don't have to make these drawings extremely beautiful, and then it's gonna come back beautiful anyway. So that was just my little PSA.
A VSA.
I think the reason why it's that way is because they got rid of a bunch of like jobs that would help clarify what a board artist used to do.
Oh,
yeah.
100%.
And now it's all on board artists. So
it's all just cost cutting. It's like you look at old SpongeBob boards and they had like a quarter of the amount of drawings. It was just like, you know, here's the funny drawing, fill in the rest. Like you didn't have to break down every single action. And they're still great. They're like very awesomely, you know, like they're very entertaining episodes. But now it's like, oh my God, everything has to be broken down into like, it's almost animation at this point. Like I feel like there's some boards that start to look like keyframes.
Yeah, it's a problem.
It's a problem.
Yeah, and especially with a lot of shows that I've been seeing, and I don't like this trend where you're practically doing the editor's job, you know, with making animatics, and it's like, then that's just is that gonna be another job that we're gonna absorb? Which that is not fair. Like, these editors have way more experience with, you know, making the show feel how it is, and we don't have enough time. We're already doing so much.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
The board like job title has just gotten so overworked, and it's frustrating because it's burning out a lot of young artists. It's burning out a lot of older artists, really. I mean, it's just like, it's become this horrible like thing where studios just kind of churn through artists, and unfortunately people want to work in the industry, and people are hungry to work in the industry, and it's a good industry, and it's awesome to like draw for a living. But when you are stuck doing 6 different jobs at once, it's like, it makes you feel underappreciated, and it's a whole thing.
Yeah,
it's a whole thing.
After Ben 10, what was the next show you hopped on? And between these two shows, kind of how was the transition?
Funny you should say hopped on, because I hopped on to Amphibia. Yeah, so I love this. I
don't know how to draw frogs. I don't know if you realize this.
I listen, any frog is a good frog.
Okay,
all right?
Thank you.
I love this frog.
That's
so
my doodle.
much.
That's my doodle for this page.
So I don't recommend doing what I did because like people kind of have to gauge your humor, and this is not a thing to do, so please do not do what I did.
Okay.
But basically, I feel like as long as you're nice and maybe you've had prior engagement in a creator's kind of tweets or social interactions, it's fine to be a little haha. but I kind of basically bullied Matt on Twitter. Because he was talking to Sam King about something, and it was something about, this is this thing, and it's great, and Matt was like, oh, that's cool. I love this character, and it's the frog character. I'm like messing around with, like, being the super sarcastic, like, where you alternate the letters, like caps and small caps, and I was like, whoa, you're telling me the creator of the frog show likes the frog?
Got him.
And then immediately preceding that, I got a DM on Twitter being like, hey, do you want to test for my show?
That's insane.
You know what's funny though? It's like, it's exactly what happened with me, which is like, okay, I have to bring up his name because like he was a big part of how I got in the industry, but like RIP Chris Savino like followed me on social media, and I was like, I mean, I say RIP, he's not
Yeah,
dead.
he's alive.
He's alive. He's just
His career is dead.
His career is dead. But at the time I was just like bragging about how I got a test for We Bare Bears, which I didn't pass, by the way. And then he was like, oh, why are you not on my show? And I'm like, and I literally told him, well, give me a test. And I got a test.
Hey, you never know.
You never know. But yeah, don't be mean, be nice and polite. But yeah, interacting with showrunners.
You say bullying, Forosha, but your like alignment chart is like lawful evil. So you're like, you are a bully. I feel like, but it is a kind, heartfelt bully who just wants you to be the best you can be. I feel like that's a good way to describe your...
True, but that is, sometimes that does not come across through text.
Yes.
Like, that's why I say do not do what I did, because like, unless you've had prior engagement, I think the only reason he didn't take it as like, what the heck, is because he probably visited my Twitter page, and my header is literally just 2 red-eyed tree frogs. Yeah. And my pinned tweet is dogs, frogs, and screams.
He was like, oh.
And also you were already an industry professional at the time. So you're not like, I mean.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But even then, like, you gotta err on the side of caution, because it's like, not everyone is gonna take your funny ha-has as funny ha-has.
Right.
It could be not a good thing that you're doing,
Yeah, it's hard because you wanna be yourself and you wanna leave an impression on people, but like I think there's it's like tricky advice to give, because there are people who will take it and run with it, be like, yell at showrunners, got it, and then it's like, no, please don't do that. Yeah,
that's why I'm saying don't do what I did. Yeah, because that's bad.
It's like how you used to hear stories about how like I went to the studio and I asked the receptionist like, where is this guy, and I brought my portfolio and he looked at it and said, wow, you're hired. And it's like, don't do that. Like, don't do that. That was a thing like 25 years ago, maybe, when there was like 15 people in the industry. Now that's like horrible. That's like so invasive and weird.
There's been a couple of like, this is kind of like a tangent, but there has been a couple of stories of people kind of stalking the studios, and let's everybody not do that.
Yeah, there would be people outside of Nickelodeon sometimes like with portfolios in hand, like waiting for people to walk outside, and it's like, that's a quick way to not get hired. That's a quick way to get blacklisted, which doesn't really exist. That's not a thing, but still.
Yeah, it's like, especially with the internet, I feel like it's like, now that there's like social media, it's like, if you just tweet once at like someone who works in animation, or you DM them once, even if it's not the best tweet or DM, it's like, all right, we all make mistakes or whatever, but like,
just
like,
be cool.
Yeah.
Just be cool. Have some common sense. Talk to people the way you'd want to be talked to. I think that's a good safe bet, because like I've definitely had my share of like reaching out to people blindly asking for work and when you're desperate, when you're trying to find a gig, you'll do anything you can, and you should, but also just be nice and cool and don't cross any boundaries that you wouldn't want crossed, which I think everyone shares those. I think for the most part, nobody would want some stranger like berating them, and then expect to get a job. Like that wouldn't normally happen. So yeah, tread lightly, be friendly, and joke accordingly.
Yeah. And also, I'd suggest this for younger artists, especially, like, use just a random username so you can kind of just, create who you want to be as an artist, and then you'll grow from that, and you can just abandon that and create yourself as someone new.
That's actually very good.
Yeah, because, I mean, that's what I've done, and honestly, I think it was the best thing for me, because if I had stayed, the same username I was when I was, a tween, people would still expect me to be drawing Legend of Zelda stuff, and it's like, I love Zelda, but it's like, I also love frogs, and not everyone's gonna like that. So...
Yeah, that's very good advice, because I do think there's this, it's like you make a screen name, you make a handle, and that's you. That's your brand for the rest of your fucking life. And it's like, not at all. like you can
do that in the future.
Yeah.
Like that, but that's for the future. Like when you're younger, it's about creating the kind of artist that you want to be. But you're never solidified as soon as you start out. You're like a mold of clay, and you just got to figure yourself out. But it's like, if you don't want to be stuck with who you are, then you can just switch it up later.
Yeah, I did that. I was Hyperboy on DeviantArt, and that's how everyone knew me, was for Hyperboy for my Flash cartoon. And then like at some point around college, I was like, I don't want to be associated with 10 years of my little kid art. And so I just kind of moved away from it. And so it's always an option, and you can start from scratch more or less. People will move wherever you move to. If you make a new account and you're like, this is where I am now, people will follow you, people who matter.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're on Amphibia now. And you're very happy there. You love
Amphibia.
your frogs.
I do.
And what else do you love besides frogs? Tell me about your influences. You mentioned Zelda, Wind Waker, which I agree. I love Wind Waker. I'm staring at a giant statue I have of those King of Red Lions. But what other stuff did you kind of grow up with that like really impacted you and made you want to get into art?
Well, SpongeBob was the huge thing for me.
Yeah.
Courage the Cowardly Dog is a big one. Like, it's so funny. Everyone kind of like, anytime you kind of draw like gross faces or something, everyone automatically assumes, oh, hey, you're a fan of Ren and Stimpy. And I'm like, no,
Yeah.
I watched it like once as a kid, and that did not register for me. Like I really didn't care. But Courage the Cowardly Dog, it scared me as a kid, so I loved it. So, and then Billy and Mandy was kind of like the merging of that weird scariness, but also it was really, really funny. It was so funny. I loved it so much. So, those were more of my inspirations. Like, gosh, I just love cartoons. So anything that kind of grabbed my attention, I was all about it. Like, I liked the Teen Titans, like that melodrama. I was like, oh, because I'm a teenager at this point. I'm like, oh, angst, yes. But I still loved the contrast of like cartoony cuteness, and I love cute and angst because that mixture is so funny.
Well, you've had a good track record for that with the show. Like Ben 10 is feels like kind of an extension of that Teen Titans, kind of comedy action with a dash of angst thrown in.
I mean, yes, but I
know you're all about Kevin.
Well, okay, here's the thing. Kevin was kind of just like a blank slate.
Right.
Because it's a board-driven show, so there's no dialogue. you're just given an outline of what needs to happen.
Mhm.
So honestly, all the board artists kind of came together and kind of molded Kevin into what he is now. Like he's so he's such a fun character because he has a lot of dimension to him that we really didn't get to do a whole lot with Ben. They're kind of, I feel like Ben was kind of like their Mickey Mouse.
Yeah, he is
They loved him very much, so they were very protective over what he could and could not do.
He's a mascot. Yeah.
They were pretty open to ideas, but you know, there was still they were way more guarded about Ben than they were about Kevin. So we got to do whatever we wanted. Like we created the fact that Kevin can't fall asleep unless he listens to like an ASMR of a dad like fixing his car and asking his son to like
That's really cute.
his son to hand him tools.
Yeah.
Oh my
That's
god.
really cute.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but then we also had to explain what ASMR is. So like we had a fun time.
Did you have to pull up some videos?
No. And
Thank
it was
God.
great because we had to record the audio.
Yeah.
So like creating all these my favorite one was our director Will. He played the dad, and I wrote down one of the things that I thought would be funny to say, and he was like, "Hey son, do you know how much I love you? Let me get out the tape measure." And then you hear the tape measure go out. And then it snaps back into place. Oh, tape measure's not long enough.
Oh, that's really cute.
But just hearing him it snap back into place, like that's the ASMR.
Oh, that's not long enough. That's really funny.
So funny. Do you what are your inspirations for writing? Because writing was such a huge part of Ben 10. And is Amphibia board driven or script driven?
It is script driven, but all of the writing is phenomenal. And also sometimes they'll let us like kind of fiddle with writing, not anything like crazy extensive, but like if we have a funny line of dialogue or how to improve like something if it's too wordy.
Right.
Because writers, they love their flourish, but sometimes we gotta cut it down. So we kind of have to talk with the writers and see, hey, what can we do to keep the context of this? And it's important because every board artist has so many responsibilities, but it's also like you want to make sure everyone feels like they had a little piece of the pie, you know, that they helped out. Like I would be pretty hurt if I was a writer and all of my stuff was changed.
Oh yeah.
Because a board artist got too controlling, you know?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%. I mean, I've always worked on script-driven shows, so I really enjoy working with scripts. And I also really respect, when you have like a really good script, oh boy, isn't it nice? You're like, yes, I can just have fun with what I'm good at.
Literally, that has been every single script with Amphibia. But who's to say? Maybe there's a bad script out there somewhere, but I haven't seen it. It hasn't come across me.
They're afraid to give it to you. They're like, we can never let her see this.
Literally, it is impossible. It is impossible.
This one bad script that's like locked away in a vault, and they're like, Forosha would kill us all.
Nah, the only way that they could like ruin anything for me is by not having frogs anymore, and that's literally impossible. Like that's literally impossible to do.
You just wait.
With the show.
Season 3 finale.
All the frogs are gone. That's the big secret.
They're all horses.
No, I don't.
No, it's a nightmare.
You open the dictionary and the word is gone.
Yeah. Ah!
Oh, that would hurt me physically. I would cry.
Oh no. I was wondering, like, if because you did writing on Ben 10, like, what is kind of like your like relationship with writing? Is it something that you've kind of like studied at all, or is it just like you just like cracking jokes, or what's your?
I just like telling stories, and a lot of my writing is character based. So I'm not. I'd say I'm a pretty weak writer, but if it's a character moment, then boom, I'm in it to win it. Like it's whoa, you can write, but then as soon as you look at the big picture, like I need help. Someone come help me. I can't swim in the deep end, please. I need my floaties.
Let's crack open some questions because we have a lot. This one is the heart of our show from at SRCPSOHA. I don't know how to pronounce that. I'd like to know what Forosha does when she's in a rut. And so we usually like to ask our guests about creative block, and that's a good way to transition to that.
What does it look like for you, too? Like, how does creative block feels like for you? And have you experienced it?
Well, I'd say it's a little harder for me to really say especially because when you have depression too, it's really, really hard. And like, especially because like, or if you have like, if you're anemic, or especially with the pandemic, like all the vitamins you get from the sun that help you are gone because you have to stay inside. It makes it even worse. So in the before times, I could just say, oh, well, sometimes I revisit things that like got me into animation in the first place. So I'll watch like an old episode of Powerpuff Girls, or stuff like that, or I'd play a game and get really into it, and that would kind of inspire me. But pandemic makes it really hard. So if you're struggling right now with burnout or block, know that it is perfectly okay to be burnt out right now.
Yeah.
Because people are not doing so hot. There's a lot of things going on, and it's very stressful. So don't think that you're not doing enough, or you're too slow for no reason, because there's a reason.
Yeah.
It's a lot, and it's hard to take a break too, because usually that's another answer. It's like sometimes you just need a break, like mentally, because especially for any kind of art, you draw from life experiences that you've had, which makes your art unique and it makes you you. But kind of hard to have experiences when you're stuck inside for a whole year. So my thing is, especially now, just trying to talk to friends or coworkers, and it can be about literally anything, like, oh, what kind of food should I, if I'm gonna order in, be like, oh, snap, I should get this, spoil myself, or, just have like fun game nights, because sometimes the Amphibia crew will get together and we'll play Among Us or Jackbox, and it's a fun time. But you need to find what works best for you, and don't beat yourself up if stuff doesn't work right away.
Yeah.
Is at least my tips for pandemic block. Like, you still gotta work, you still gotta draw, but do your best to take care of yourself, because if you don't, you're gonna be way worse off than you would have been if you had.
Yeah. I think that's good advice.
Yeah.
I think taking time for yourself is the best thing you can do right now, and not put that much pressure, because it's hard to maintain any kind of excitement for anything.
That is very true.
We had a question from at Flippy Super. How does one find a place to express themselves and be creative in shows with heavy restrictions on their content by the studio? I know some cartoons aren't allowed to do stuff because of the target audience, like the Ben 10 reboot, for example. It's a good question.
Well, here's the thing. We were pretty much allowed to do almost anything we wanted on Ben 10. So it was more about like SMP kind of being like, hey, you can't do this because of international, or hey, that's too violent. Like, but pretty much it's just you do the thing regardless and see what you can get away with. That's my point. Because odds are what's going to happen is they'll either forget or they'll pay attention to something that is so minor, but the other thing that you thought you were not going to get away with, you totally get away with. So
yeah. That happens all the time.
Mm-hmm.
That is good. I it is always surprising the kind of stuff that S&P gets a stick in their craw about. It's just like, really? It's always seatbelts. It's always seatbelts. As long as just draw all your characters without seatbelts, and they'll get so mad that you can get away with a guy getting stabbed. And they won't even... No, I'm kidding. I'm exaggerating. But it's like they pick the weirdest battles to fight, and it's like, all right, sure, whatever.
Yeah. One of my favorite tricks we did in Ben 10 is we would always insert a dog somewhere, and we would put an X for a butthole. And they're like, we need to do something about this dog, and they're totally not paying attention to anything else.
That's so funny. Yeah, you gotta use those. That was something that filmmakers in the Soviet Union used to do, because every movie had to pass through government oversight, and so there was so much scrutiny that they would intentionally put stuff in that was like anti-communist or whatever, stuff that they would be like, oh, no, you can't have that. And then they would miss like blatant allegories for like blatant criticism of communism just because there was a more obvious one, or just, stuff that might not have gone by normally. And so like, it's a strategy, man. It works.
Honestly, it's like something that I learned on my first gig in France, because France, all of the productions are meant to go for international. So there are things that like we can't have the kids like eating pork, because then it wouldn't fly. And so no hot dogs or like ham or whatever.
Yeah.
And which is is understandable for international. And but yeah, there's like definitely like we're like, I think what we're usually trying to do is like have the like kids doing stunts or something that's kind of cool, because you can't do anything cool when everything is like all safe, right? So so yeah, you definitely will like stick something that's like, whoa, they're lighting up a match? No way, Jose. Yeah. And then in the background there's someone doing the kickflip, and that will go through.
You never know. Yeah, might as well just do it. Let somebody else deal with that. Had a question from @Doggymus. I first met your work through those really cool drawings of Spinel you used to do. Could you draw her, but as a frog?
Oh, I thought you'd never ask.
Crank out one of those. That's more of a drawing prompt.
Oh, yeah, let's go.
Well, while you do that, I'll go to the next one. @SEMobster, what music do you listen to while storyboarding?
Oh, that's a tough thing. I don't really listen to music unless it's cleanup time, because that's kind of mindless. So if I end up singing lyrics to a song, it's not that bad because I'm not as hyper focused, But I usually listen to like podcasts or watch like YouTube videos or something.
Sure. What kind of stuff do you listen to, or like a podcast?
Like Last Podcast on the Left. But primarily I'd say like YouTube is kind of where I can throw something on and be like, yeah. Or like a Twitch stream,
Sure.
Especially that.
Favorite YouTube channel?
Oh, favorite YouTube channel? Oof, that's tough.
Creative Block.
Oh yeah, Creative Block.
Yeah. No. Wow, really? Oh my God.
That's my big favorite.
Wow.
I wanted the real answer.
No, I want the fake answer. We need more subs. Like, comment, subscribe, everyone.
Yeah.
All right, what's the real answer?
Ring that bell. My real answer is like a mix. It's Danny Gonzalez, Drew Gooden, Curtis Connor. I got randomly into like Minecraft stuff.
Okay.
So like sometimes there'll be like all the new like Minecraft people, but I usually don't mention it because it's just kind of like it's more for younger people. So I don't really bring it up because literally no one else would know what I'm talking about. So it's like, oh, that's a cute little thing that like younger Minecraft people are doing, and it's really adorable, and they're like
Yeah.
hanging out with their friends, and it's just like, aw.
Yeah. Let's see. From at Toxic Ramen Art. I have some questions. Do you really need to move to LA in order to get a job in the animation industry, since most of major studios like Disney, Cartoon Network, and Nickelodeon are in that area?
That's I don't hate this question because of this person. I hate that this even has to be a
Well,
thing.
it's a thing. Yeah, it's a thing that, I mean,
You
even,
know,
yeah.
it's a thing that really irks me because there's a lot of unfairness in the fact that like, especially if you didn't grow up with a lot of money, it's a lot harder to you use up so much more finances just trying to live in LA because most of the time you're not going to get an apartment unless you have a job, and you can't have a job unless you're physically in LA. So a lot of people either start out from their cars or at school, or they end up on Craigslist trying to get like a random roommate, or if they're lucky, like someone they've known online for a bit. But there's so much more of a risk to that, and I think unfortunately right now it's like that, but I feel like that could potentially change because of everything being work from home now. But I feel like there's going to be a lot of issues coming in the future with the guild.
Yeah.
What I will say, to kind of, because right now I'm working with Netflix and I see that they're being really good about like reaching to basically anyone. So hopefully, maybe streaming studios that are like streaming services that are starting their own studios, maybe they will be the change. I feel like studios like probably Nickelodeon, Cartoon Network, Disney have kind of grown to be studios by having their teams on site. I don't know, just
Well,
maybe.
there's a thing, it's a guild thing because like the guild can't cover you for benefits if you're
Mhm.
not in the county or the state or something. I don't know where the line is drawn, but I think they're working on removing that because, you know, in pandemic time everyone bailed. Like nobody wants to be in LA if they don't have to be. And so
Mhm.
I hope they do away with that because I feel like it's an archaic like remnant of the ye old days, like
Mhm.
you know, when the guild first started. I don't know when they first put that into effect, but it's like, man, anybody could work anywhere. Why are we stuck here? It's
Mhm.
expensive and it's smoggy. And like,
I will say though, if your team is like all over the planet, time zones can be kind of tricky.
I mean, yeah, there's a limit to how far maybe you can go, but
I think the most important thing is, can you make the meetings? Are you responding to your emails? Are
yeah,
you meeting deadlines? That's great. But for
Yeah.
some people, it's not about getting the paycheck to draw. Other people, they're going to LA for that community. It just
yeah,
sucks
Right.
that the community is all central to LA. It's not like there's mini communities in random states, you know?
yeah.
Like there's kind of one in New York, but it's like I feel like I had never even heard of any New York stuff ever.
Yeah.
It's more advertisement based, advertisement
Mhm.
slash underground comics slash
Yeah.
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 There's a few studios, but yeah, there's definitely no guild support as far as I know.
Mhm.
And then this person had some follow-up questions that were all good.
Yeah.
When it comes to online portfolios, do we need to have a little bit of everything to show that we can do anything, or just one or two areas of interest?
I would say you kind of have, like, if you want to do everything, that's great. But you also have to consider, what am I applying for? Because if you're applying for storyboards, they don't care that you can do a background painting. They don't care about your character turnarounds. You're kind of wasting their time.
Yeah.
Like, because they've got a lot of people in their portfolios to dig through. So you have to kind of be conscious of what am I applying for? And I need to send them a direct link to the thing that I want them to see, that I want to be hired for, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really true.
And it's nothing against you, because I'm sure like you could probably do amazing things in all sorts of fields, but they're looking for something in particular, and the first thing they see from you is like backgrounds. They're going to be like, all right, next.
I kind of hear that question a lot, and it's very valid, but I also feel like the answer is easier than a lot of people think, and it's just like, if you were hiring, what would you want to see?
I was gonna say, it also depends on the studio. I do agree, like in American studios, because they're so big and the productions are so big, like they want to be able to put you in a box.
Right.
But if you do apply to a smaller studio, there's a couple in the US, like probably Bento Box or Titmouse even, maybe. Like if you're more of a jack of all trade, like, or even from what I kind of heard at Cartoon Network UK, it's kind of, they are a little bit interested if you can do multiple things and you can do them well, because it's like, oh, like maybe you can help out a little bit in this other thing, you know, like it's a little bit more freeform, maybe, I don't know. Just saying, like, I know in France it's a little bit more like that. It's a little bit more like, if you can do like multiple things, that's kind of cool, like, you know.
Yeah, it really depends.
But that's the thing though, like if they're interested in your work, they'll kind of stick around in your portfolio and look at your other stuff. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Like, if you're applying for boards, then boom, they see your boards and might be like, wow, I really like their stuff, but I feel like their boards aren't matching. But then they could see like your backgrounds and stuff, be like, oh, whoa, this totally works for our show. And you could end up getting a like background job instead. But yeah.
I think, didn't that happen with Natasha Allegri, where she like applied for character design or something and then ended up as a board artist? Or maybe it was the other way around. But I know that I think Penn Ward at the time was like, I think you'd be a better fit for this. Because like, yeah, like you said, like anybody that's doing the hiring, if they already like what you're doing, they'll probe deeper and they'll get a better feel for who you are and find a fit for you.
Yeah.
So I think it's just make a lot of good work, make sure that you're always putting out your best work, and be hireable. Like be as hireable as possible. And that sounds obvious, but
make sure your contact information is available.
Yeah.
You goofy fellas, because you goofy peeps.
You goofy
We want to hire you, but you hide your information. You gotta make that stuff well known.
Yeah, I think we've talked about it on this podcast before, and I complain about it all the time. But man, like people are like, "Why can't I find work?" And it's like, dude, your Twitter has no pinned tweet, no portfolio. All you do is retweet other people's art, and you expect me to like know what you're all about? Like, I have like 30 other artists that I'm looking through. Like, I can't take the time to like fish through your media to find your art. Like, that's what I mean. That's what I mean by be hireable. It's like, just you have to make it easy. You have to make it as easy as possible for recruiters and showrunners or whoever.
Yeah.
To see your stuff and be like, got it, okay, you know. And
not only that, but like, especially if you're looking for work, sometimes people just, you know, they see your stuff and be like, oh man, that person's probably busy. I'd love to have them on my show, but it doesn't look like they're available. Like, make it known that you're looking.
Yeah.
Like, have a pinned tweet, or have it be like one of the things that the first thing you see when they're on your Tumblr or wherever you post art. Like, make it known. Because sometimes people are following you and they're just waiting to snap you up.
Yep. Couple of more questions, just very like tech-centric. What kind of art software do you like to use? Do you use a regular tablet or a pen display tablet, which I assume is a Cintiq? And do you draw mostly digitally or traditionally? I feel like those are all kind of hand in hand.
Where do I begin? Okay. Let's see.
Buckle up.
Yeah, no, buckle up. This is like one of my big things.
Oh
so
I'm scared.
For art programs, there's Clip Studio, Krita, Procreate for just like drawing and doodling, or if I need to get a quick character design out. Storyboarding, I do Storyboard Pro. Sometimes I animate, so I've animated in Harmony before, but like really quickly, and also Rough Animator on iPad, and I've worked in Flash. Let's see, what else? For tablets, iPad. I use that sometimes when I want to get up from my desk. I bought an app called Duet Display. It allows me to use my iPad as like kind of a mobile studio pro, which is like a Cintiq you can just carry with you.
That's
it works
really
as a second
cool.
monitor for your computer. And as long as you have good Wi-Fi, you're golden. But I would say it's a little laggier for like Photoshop and drawing programs, and you gotta do some finagling to make it work in Storyboard Pro, but it can work. I'd say it's great for doing roughs, but for cleanup, you might wanna go back to the computer for that one. But then I used to have a Cintiq, but it crapped out on me, and I am not a fan of Wacom, because I just feel like they have a monopoly on the, they have like the art industry in the palm of their hand, and it's like they refuse to let it go. So
now we're never gonna get that sponsorship. Thanks, Forosha.
Oh no! Oh no! I'm so sorry. You can just get rid of this, but
No.
We lost Adobe.
We lost Adobe.
We already are never gonna get Adobe.
Oh no! Clip Studio's better anyway. Get them out of here.
Yeah, I gotta try that.
It opens PSDs, and now you can import PSD brush files.
That's really good. That's
Yeah.
You can work in Vector. You can there's some overseas studios that are actually using it to animate, which is crazy.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. So, and they have an audio track now, so it's a lot easier to do lip sync.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and they always have sales and stuff. So, just know if you want to do animation and just doodling, Clip Studio is great. If you have the standard version, I think it only lets you animate up to 24 frames. But then if you get the expert version or whatever, it's limitless. So
right.
And as for the tablet I'm currently using, it's a Huion. It's because I was just like, no, I'm over it. I'm over Wacom. Because I buy something so expensive. It's so expensive. And then to have it crap out on me, and not only that, because it's probably their most stable Cintiq, which is the 22 HD, I think. That's the one that they all have at studios and stuff. But the power brick and cord just crap out on me all the time. And I would be in the middle of doing my rough pitch and my Cintiq would just turn off, and I'm just like, Jesus. So I'd have to switch over, and it was a whole thing. So I got so mad. I was like, all right, third party it is. Let's go. And
how do you like it? Yeah.
I really like it. I would say, of course, a Cintiq is going to feel better to draw on. There's no question. It feels great, but it's like if I'm spending that much and it's crapping out on me, and not only that, but if you bought that model, they no longer support it. They're you can't buy a new power brick, so you have to search on Amazon or some other place for a weird power brick and make sure it works. I tried getting multiple power bricks from Wacom themselves, and it was just not working. So I spent a lot of money just trying to get my Cintiq working, and I was like, with that, I could have just bought a new tablet. So Huion, they got some really nice. It's a display tablet, but they offer a lot of other tablets too, and it's a lot cheaper than Wacom. So if you're a newer artist who wants that experience of drawing on, an actual display, I would recommend Huion and XP Pen. They're very good. Yeah. So that's my little take. Of course, there's still going to be expensive tablets, but these are going to be way cheaper than anything Wacom offers.
It's a good place to start. Yeah, you don't need the fanciest thing when you're starting out, for sure.
Yeah, And even then, the fanciest things crap out on you. So it's like,
Yeah,
what's the
yeah.
point?
I kind of like I got a Cintiq at home finally after many years of just having one at work, and I'm glad because the pandemic hit. But
Mm-hmm.
I kind of flip flop because like I get burnt out on sitting in front of the Cintiq, and so sometimes I'll just like break out my tablet and draw with a tablet. I kind of like
Mhm.
not having my hand in the screen. Like there's something nice about that too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
that's true.
So at Kate Snod asked, "What's your
Yeah.
favorite? Yeah, what's your favorite piece of art drawing advice you've heard, and why are you so heckin' awesome?"
Well, I'm only awesome because of all of the great people I have met in my career, including Kate's Nod.
Yes,
Man,
shout out.
great. She was a PA on Ben 10, and she told me she wanted to be a board artist, and I told her she should do it, and she's doing it.
Yeah, she's
She's
working with
great.
me now. She's
Mhm.
Oh really? Oh wow.
yeah, it's awesome.
Shout out, Kate.
Yeah, patron rules. But I would say, hang on, let me go over here really quick. I literally just had a thing that I watched today where some guy who created a frog show, he was in some kind of meeting. I don't know. I think I've heard of him before. I've seen him on Twitter a couple times. Matt Rober?
Brawley.
And he created
Like the Dragon Ball character.
He created Amphibiland.
Amphibole.
No, but
Whoops.
my boss from Amphibia had a really good tip. This is specifically just for like storyboarding, but he said that animatics don't lie. And I thought that was very, very like insightful, because you can be a great pitcher for a board. Like, you pitch a board, everyone loves it and they laugh and they love your delivery. As soon as it goes into animatic, if that story isn't playing well without your pitching, then it needs help. There's something wrong.
Yeah.
Yep.
What are some of your goals going forward with your career and just kind of in general?
So I'm kind of just playing it by ear. I just want to work in cartoons as long as I can. I love boarding, but it would be nice to direct something because I like helping improve things. I mean, writing would be cool. I kind of just want to be all over the place, but I feel like I don't want to be a showrunner, at least currently. But
Yeah.
You kind of have to have that thing that you're willing to fight for, because there's going to be so much pushback even if it gets greenlit, you know? Like, you have to be willing to fight for things that you want. Like, if you want certain representation or, you know, like anything like that, any kind of thing that doesn't fit their mold, then you got to fight for it.
Yeah.
You got to be like, I'm out of here if we don't do this.
Yeah. For sure.
But yeah. I feel like also before I used to think, if I can't draw, I had a good run, put me down, like Old Yeller kind
Like
of deal.
just shoot you.
Yeah. I was very much, I am nothing without being able to draw. But after being in the industry, my experiences, good and bad, kind of taught me your experiences have value.
Mm-hmm.
So if I could, I would love to be like an exec who's like fighting for artists and advocating to keep their vision kind of how they want it. And just kind of, I don't know, giving artists help and productions help, because they have to go through so much, and it's hard enough trying to create a show and meet deadlines, but trying to fit the mold of what the execs think aren't great is not great. And plus it's really sad to hear if an exec isn't about animation. They're just kind of there just cuz.
The worst.
When like our exec Doug, he's great. He's the one who loves Smash. So he's very supportive and I'm very thankful. Like, he kind of opened my eyes to, like, oh, execs can be passionate about cartoons, which is really sad.
Yeah, right.
It's like come on, it's this is cartoons. Why wouldn't you be excited to be here?
Yeah, just that's their like career they fell into or something.
Yeah,
I don't like it either.
Sad. Yeah, but when you get execs who are excited about what you're doing, it really kind of takes a little weight off, the show creators' shoulders, and that they know that they're willing to work with them. Like, I'm sure there's still like conflicts about things, but for the most part, it, like the notes and stuff that you'll hear from some execs will, like, if you hear something where it's like, oh, I love this, and they're getting invested in the story and stuff like that, it's like, oh, that like warms my heart. Like,
yeah, I do hope more artists kind of move to the executive side. It happens very rarely, but I think it's always appreciated by the networks, and it's like there's an insight there that a lot of execs don't have, which is that of the inside of the creative process and stuff. And so like it's very valuable.
It's just like you need to be like so good with like business and like talking. I don't know, like
it's
I feel
tough.
like every day I'm like still learning how to properly express my ideas in meetings in a way that is still like that is mindful of everyone, not just of everyone in the meeting as persons, but also as mindful of each of and everyone their role, and like the limits of like how much you can say, and like all of this like what your role is in a team, and like all of that is just like it's really hard to do.
It's hard. It's a lot to juggle.
But it's like it's kind of like learning to delegate and trust the team. That's the thing. I trust artists, so I feel like it wouldn't be that hard for me. Like,
yeah,
it's like you gotta learn at a certain point that like you gotta let other people create the thing, and you're there to help make the thing happen. It's not about like, oh, I have to be in control of this and this. It's like you're their liaison to the big boys, like that they never see. You pass down like stuff that they're saying, but it's like if a show creator is like very passionate about a certain thing, and the big boys above you are being like, hey, we don't want this, your job as kind of that mediator exec is to be like, well, they really need this. This is like the main crux of the show, so it's kind of important this day. And like you gotta learn to like fight for the artist too, which is why it's like if you don't have execs that are passionate about it, they're not going to.
Yeah. It's tough. I think that a good producer, a good exec, is somebody that helps the creative side be as effective as possible, but doesn't get in the way. And egos get in the way, and job titles and all kinds of things, and like so it muddies up that whole process. But there's lots of execs that I know that are awesome, and they do exactly that. They just help the artists fulfill their vision, and they don't try to make it their own project. They don't try to change it. It's just like, I get what you're doing here. Let me teach you how to make this appealing to the network or whoever,
Yeah.
That's super valuable. So I think that like, if anybody ever wants to, I hope more artists make that jump. If, I think it'd be really helpful to the industry at large.
Yeah.
And let's do one last question from at Kita Draws. Will Forosha live forever and rule us all?
Again, this is like kind of back to the exec thing,
Right.
I'm not gonna be there to be in charge of you. I'm just going to be watching.
Oh my God! Forosha for president, 2024.
No, I don't want to.
Forosha for president, 2024.
No.
Vice president's frog.
All right.
Now we're talking.
I can see.
All right. Well, that's the end of
that's
this creative block. Thanks to Forosha for being our guest and sharing her story.
Oh, thank you for having me here.
Thanks for your listener. Follow us on Twitter at Creative Block, where that's creative without the vowels, where we ask for drawing prompts and questions to ask your guests. Huge thanks to my sister Clemence for editing the podcast.
Please subscribe to the channel if you love our content. I've been your host, Gene.
And I was V. Keep being creative, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.